I found myself staring at an old wedding photo last night, the edges worn from years tucked away in a drawer. 21 years ago, I believed we would grow old together. I believed in the promises we made at that small ceremony, in the family we built, in the life we shared. I never thought she would be the one to walk away, leaving me and our 2 young children behind, without looking back. I never thought a Tuesday morning could shatter everything I knew about love, commitment, and family. Until the day, everything shattered, and I learned what it truly means to stand alone. Before I share what happened 21 years ago and how we finally got our closure, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about resilience and moving forward. Trust me, what my kids and I said to her after all those years will show you that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming the person you were meant to be. Now let me take you back to the moment my world fell apart. I met Linda when I was 25 years old. Back then, life felt full of possibilities. I was a young construction engineer, just starting to make a name for myself, and she was a preschool teacher with a smile that could light up any room. Our wedding was small and simple, held in her parents' backyard, with maybe 40 guests. We could not afford anything fancy, but it did not matter. We had each other, and that felt like enough. We spent the first few years building our life from scratch. I worked long hours on construction sites, coming home covered in dust and exhausted, but Linda always had dinner waiting. She would tell me stories about the kids in her class, mimicking their voices, until I laughed so hard my sides hurt. 2 years into our marriage, we welcomed our son Dylan. Holding him for the first time, watching Linda cradle him against her chest, I thought I had everything a man could want. 3 years later, our daughter Emma was born. With 2 kids under 5, our house was chaos, but it was beautiful chaos. Dylan would build block towers while Emma knocked them down, both of them squealing with laughter. We had family dinners every night at 6 sharp. On weekends, we would pack sandwiches and head to the park, watching Dylan chase pigeons while Emma collected dandelions. Those years felt golden, like nothing could touch us. But then slowly things started to change. Emma had just turned 5 when I first noticed Linda pulling away. At first it was small things. She started coming home later from work, always, with an explanation about parent-teacher conferences or mandatory training sessions. She spent more time on her phone, texting with a little smile I did not recognize. When I tried to talk to her about her day, she gave short answers, her attention somewhere else entirely. The woman who used to cuddle with me on the couch while watching movies started going to bed early. The wife who used to kiss me goodbye every morning started rushing out the door with barely a wave. She bought new clothes, started wearing more makeup, changed her perfume to something expensive I never bought her. When I complimented her, trying to bridge the distance growing between us, she barely acknowledged it. I told myself she was stressed. Teaching young children was demanding work. Maybe she was going through something I did not understand, so I tried harder. I cooked dinner more often, took over bath time with the kids so she could relax. I suggested date nights, but she always had an excuse. Too tired. Too much work to grade. Not in the mood. The woman I married was disappearing, and I had no idea why. Then one evening, Dylan asked me a question that made my blood run cold. He was 7 years old, sitting at the kitchen table working on his homework, while I chopped vegetables for dinner. Out of nowhere, he looked up and said, "Dad, why does Mom always talk to Uncle Greg on the phone?" I stopped mid-chop. Uncle Greg. Who is that buddy Mom's friend from work? She talks to him a lot. Sometimes she laughs really loud. Greg. I knew that name. He was a fellow teacher at Linda's school, someone I had met briefly at a holiday party the year before. Tall guy, confident, always had a joke ready. Linda had mentioned him a few times, always casually, always in passing. Just a colleague, just a friend. But something about the way Dylan said it, the innocence in his observation, made my stomach twist. I started paying closer attention. I noticed how Linda carried her phone everywhere now, even to the bathroom. How she would giggle at texts and quickly lock her screen when I walked by. How her face lit up in a way it had not for me in months. One afternoon I called her school during what was supposed to be a staff meeting. The secretary told me there was no meeting scheduled that day. When Linda came home that evening, I asked her how the meeting went. She launched into details about curriculum changes and new policies, her words flowing smoothly like she had practiced them. But her eyes would not meet mine, and I knew. Deep in my gut, I knew something was terribly wrong. I tried talking to her one night after the kids were asleep. "Linda, are we okay? You seem distant lately." She barely looked up from her phone. Everything is fine, Parker. I am just tired. You know how demanding work is. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything bothering you? No. Why do you keep asking? Her voice had an edge to it, defensive and sharp. I wanted to ask directly about Greg, about the lies about the distance. But fear held me back. Fear of what the truth might be. Fear of losing the family I had worked so hard to build. So I said nothing, and the silence between us grew heavier with each passing day. The truth came crashing down on a Saturday morning in October. Linda said she was going shopping with her friend from work, someone named Jennifer. She kissed the kids on their foreheads, a gesture so casual it made my heart ache, and walked out the door with her purse and a smile I had not seen in months. Dylan and Emma were playing in the living room while I cleaned up breakfast dishes. Emma was dancing around with one of her dolls when she accidentally knocked Linda's iPad off the coffee table. I heard the thud and walked over picking it up to make sure the screen had not cracked. That is when I saw it. A message notification lit up the screen. Cannot wait to see you today. I love you. The sender, Greg. My hands started shaking. I stood there in the middle of our living room, my daughter humming a made-up song behind me while my entire world tilted sideways. I should not have looked. I knew it was wrong, but I could not stop myself. I opened the iPad, and there they were. Months of messages, hundreds of them. Last night was incredible. I have never felt this way before. Being with you makes me feel alive again. I hate having to hide this. I wish we could just be together. And then the one that broke me completely. Linda had written, I feel trapped in my marriage. He is a good man, but I do not love him anymore. When I am with you, I remember what it feels like to be happy. We belong together. I sat down on the floor, the iPad in my lap, tears streaming down my face. Emma came over and hugged me, asking why I was sad. I could not answer her. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that her mother has been lying to everyone? That the life we built together was crumbling to dust? I scrolled through more messages. They had been seeing each other for nearly a year. Meeting at his apartment while I thought she was at work meetings. Planning a future together. Linda had even told Greg she was thinking about asking for a divorce. She was just waiting for the right time. When Linda came home that afternoon, her shopping bags empty, her cheeks flushed, I was sitting on the couch with the iPad beside me. The kids were upstairs watching a movie. She walked in with that same bright smile, the one she saved for him, and it died on her face when she saw my expression. Parker, what is wrong? I held up the iPad. Her face went white. The argument that followed was the worst of my life. She tried to deny it at first, then minimize it. It is not what you think. But the messages spoke for themselves. Finally she broke down, not with remorse but with frustration that she had been caught. I do not love you anymore, Parker. I have not for a long time. What about the kids? What about our family? I cannot keep living a lie just for them. I deserve to be happy too. And Greg makes you happy. Yes, she said it without hesitation. With him I feel alive. I feel like myself again. You are a good man, but you are not the man for me. I begged her to think about Dylan and Emma. They were 7 and 5 years old. They needed their mother. She looked away, tears in her eyes, but they were not tears of regret. They were tears of someone who had already made up her mind. We can try counseling, I pleaded. We can fix this. I do not want to fix it. I want out. That night I slept on the couch, or tried to. Mostly I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage, trying to figure out where I went wrong. What did I fail to give her? What did Greg offer that I could not? The questions spiraled endlessly, and no answers came. 3 days later, Linda told me she wanted a divorce. She had already talked to Greg about their future. He was leaving his wife too. They were going to start fresh together. When I asked about Dylan and Emma, she said words I will never forget. You can keep them. I need time to figure out my life. I cannot be a mother right now. I stared at her, unable to comprehend what I was hearing. A mother saying she did not want her own children. A woman choosing her affair partner over the kids she had carried, nursed, and raised. How can you say that? They are your children. I know, but I am drowning here, Parker. I need to find myself again. They will be better off with you anyway. You have always been the stable one. The morning she left is burned into my memory. She packed 2 suitcases, taking only her clothes and a few personal items. Dylan and Emma stood in the hallway watching her move back and forth between rooms. Emma's little voice asked, Mommy, where are you going? Linda knelt down, but she could not meet their eyes. Mommy needs to go away for a while, sweetheart. When will you come back? Dylan asked, his voice already thick with tears. Linda did not answer. She hugged them both quick and awkward like she was hugging strangers. Then she stood up, grabbed her bags and walked out the door. I watched from the window as she loaded her car and drove away without looking back. Emma and Dylan stood beside me crying. Emma clutched my leg, asking why Mommy left. Dylan tried to be brave, wiping his tears with the back of his hand, but his whole body shook with sobs. I knelt down and pulled them both into my arms, holding them as tight as I could while my own heart shattered into pieces. I had no idea how to explain this to them. I had no idea how we were going to survive this. The first few months alone were the hardest of my life. I had to learn everything from scratch. Linda had always handled the morning routine, the school pickups, the meal planning. Now it was all on me. I woke up at 5:30 every morning to pack lunches, make breakfast, and get both kids ready for school. Dylan needed help with his reading homework. Emma needed her hair braided a specific way or she would cry. There were permission slips to sign, doctor appointments to schedule, parent-teacher conferences to attend. I was exhausted constantly. Between working full-time and managing everything at home, I barely slept. I lost 15 pounds in the first month because I forgot to eat, too busy making sure the kids had food. Some nights after tucking Dylan and Emma into bed, I would sit in the shower fully clothed and just let the water run over me while I cried. The kids asked about Linda constantly those first weeks. When is Mommy coming home? Can we call Mommy? Does Mommy miss us? I did not know what to tell them. How do you explain abandonment to children? How do you tell them their mother chose her own happiness over them? I settled on a simple answer. Mommy is busy right now, but Daddy is always here. Daddy will always be here. And I meant it. Whatever else fell apart in my life, I would not let them down. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Linda did not fight for custody. She signed away her parental rights except for occasional visitation, which the court allowed. In reality, she rarely came. The first few months, she showed up every other weekend, taking Dylan and Emma to the park or for ice cream. But the visits became less frequent, once a month, every few months. Eventually, she would go half a year without seeing them. Each time she canceled, I watched my kids' faces fall. Emma would get quiet, retreating to her room. Dylan would get angry, slamming doors and snapping at his sister. I held them through it all, reassuring them that her absence was not their fault, that they were loved and wanted, and enough. I sold our old house. It held too many painful memories, ghosts in every room. I bought a smaller place closer to their school, somewhere we could start fresh. It had a backyard where Dylan could play soccer and Emma could have a swing set. It was not much, but it was ours. Work became my focus outside of the kids. I threw myself into projects, staying late when I could arrange babysitters, taking on extra responsibilities. My dedication paid off. Within 2 years, I was promoted to senior engineer. The raise meant I could afford better things for Dylan and Emma, save for their college funds, and stop living paycheck to paycheck. But more than the money, my kids became my purpose. I went to every single soccer game Dylan played. I sat through every ballet recital Emma performed, and even the ones where she forgot her steps and cried backstage. I was there for every school play, every art show, every award ceremony. When Dylan won the science fair in 5th grade, I was the dad whooping loudly in the back row. When Emma got the lead role in her middle school musical, I was front row center with flowers. I learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. I figured out how to cook more than just spaghetti and chicken nuggets. I became the dad who volunteered for field trips and baked cupcakes for class parties, usually lopsided and overfrosted but made with love. The other parents at school knew me as that single dad who never missed a thing. The years passed. Dylan grew into a thoughtful, intelligent young man. He had my work ethic and a kindness that humbled me. He studied hard, played soccer through high school, and applied to colleges with a focus I had not had at his age. When the acceptance letter from MIT came, I cried harder than he did. Emma blossomed into a fierce, compassionate person. She defended the underdog at school, stood up against bullying, and had a sense of justice that ran deep. She wanted to change the world, and I believed she would. When she got into Yale to study law, specifically to work in children's rights, my chest swelled with pride. Through it all, Linda remained a shadow. She came to maybe 3 or 4 birthdays total over the years. She missed Dylan's high school graduation, completely sending a card with $50 and a generic message. She did not show up to Emma's graduation from Yale, claiming she had to work. The kids stopped expecting her. They stopped asking about her. They had learned the hard way that I was the parent who showed up, and that had to be enough. Dylan built a successful career as a software engineer at a major tech company in California. Emma became a lawyer fighting for children in the foster system, giving voices to kids who had none. They called me every week, visited whenever they could, and told me constantly how grateful they were. Not for things or money, but for being there, for never leaving, for showing them what real love looked like. Then, 21 years after Linda walked out our door, my phone rang with a number I had not seen in over a year. Her voice on the other end was tentative, shaky. "Parker, I need to talk to Dylan and Emma. Will you help me arrange it?" I was silent for a moment. "Why now? I just need to see them. Please." I could have said no. Part of me wanted to. But the decision was not mine alone. I called Dylan, now 28, and living his best life. I called Emma, 26, and fierce as ever. I told them their mother wanted to meet. What do you think I asked them? Dylan was quiet then, said, "I think we should hear what she has to say, for closure." Emma agreed. "I want to look her in the eye and tell her what I have needed to say for years." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown on a Saturday afternoon. Neutral ground. The kids wanted me there, so I came sitting at the table between my two amazing children, waiting for the woman who had once been my everything. Linda walked in looking older than her years. Her hair was graying at the temples, lines creased around her eyes and mouth. She carried herself with a heaviness that had not been there before. When she saw Dylan and Emma grown and successful and strong, her eyes filled with tears. She sat down across from us, her hands shaking as she folded them on the table. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Linda broke the silence, her voice cracking. "I am so sorry. I was wrong. I should never have left you." The words hung in the air. Dylan and Emma exchanged glances, and I stayed quiet, letting them take the lead. This was their moment, not mine. Linda continued, the words tumbling out like a confession. "Greg and I got married, but it did not work out the way I thought it would. After 5 years, he cheated on me with a woman from his gym. The irony was not lost on me. I divorced him. We never had kids. I have been alone now for years, working the same teaching job, living in a small apartment. I think about you every day. I think about what I threw away, and it kills me." She looked at Dylan and Emma with desperate eyes. "I know I do not deserve it, but I am asking for forgiveness. I want to be part of your lives. I want to try to make up for lost time. Please." Emma leaned forward first, her lawyer instincts kicking in her voice, calm and measured. "We forgive you. But you need to understand something. Dad was there for every single moment, every scraped knee, every bad dream, every achievement. When I broke my arm falling off the monkey bars in 2nd grade, he was the one who rushed me to the hospital and stayed up all night, making sure I was okay. When Dylan had nightmares about you leaving, Dad was the one who held him until he fell back asleep. You made your choice 21 years ago. We respect that. But we also made our peace with it." Dylan nodded, his voice firm but not cruel. "Dad taught us that family is not about blood. It is about who shows up, who stays when things get hard, who sacrifices their own comfort to make sure you have what you need. You did not show up, Mom. Not for the things that mattered." Linda's tears flowed freely now, her face crumpling with the weight of what she was hearing. She turned to me, and I knew it was my turn to speak. I had thought about what I would say if this moment ever came. For years, I rehearsed speeches in my head full of anger and hurt. But sitting there looking at the broken woman across from me, I felt nothing but peace. "I spent years being angry at you, Linda," I said quietly. "I spent years wondering what I did wrong, why I was not enough. But I am not angry anymore. Raising Dylan and Emma alone was the hardest thing I have ever done. But it was also the most rewarding. They turned out to be incredible people, not because of you, but despite you. They learned resilience because they had to. They learned what love really means because I showed them every single day." I paused, making sure she heard every word. "I hope you find peace, Linda. I really do. But our chapter ended a long time ago. The kids have their own lives now, their own paths. They do not need a mother who shows up 2 decades late asking for a second chance. They needed one 21 years ago, and you were not there." Linda sat frozen, unable to speak, tears streaming down her face. She reached across the table, but Dylan and Emma did not take her hand. They sat still, their faces showing neither hatred nor love, just a quiet acceptance of reality. Emma stood first. "I hope you find what you are looking for, but it is not going to be with us. We have moved on." Dylan stood next, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Take care of yourself, Mom." I stood last, and together the three of us walked toward the door. Behind us, Linda sat alone at the table, staring at her empty hands, realizing too late what she had lost. We stepped out into the sunshine, and I felt lighter than I had in years. The weeks after that meeting brought a strange sense of closure. For years I had wondered if Linda ever regretted her choice. Now I knew. She did, but her regret changed nothing. It could not rewrite history or heal old wounds. It could not give Dylan and Emma back the mother they needed when they were small and scared. Some things once broken cannot be repaired. I thought back to those early days of single parenthood when I felt so alone and overwhelmed. The sleepless nights, the tears I hid from the kids, the moments I thought I might collapse under the weight of it all, but I did not collapse. I stood. I fought. I showed up every single day, even when I wanted to give up. And slowly, over time, something beautiful happened. Through the struggle of raising Dylan and Emma alone, I found a strength I did not know I had. Through their love, I healed from wounds I thought would never close. They became my purpose, my motivation, my reason to be better. Every sacrifice I made for them came back to me tenfold in hugs and laughter and pride. I did not remarry. A few women came into my life over the years, kind women who understood my priorities. But nothing serious ever developed. My heart belonged to my kids, to building the life we had together. And honestly, I was happy. I had friends who became family colleagues who respected me, hobbies that brought me joy. I played golf on weekends when the kids were busy. I went fishing with Dylan whenever he came home to visit. I helped Emma move into 3 different apartments as her career advanced. Now, at almost 50 years old, I sit on my back porch in the evenings and watch the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. My phone buzzes with texts from Dylan telling me about a project at work he is excited about. Emma calls to ask what I want her to bring for Sunday dinner, a tradition we started years ago. They live their own lives, chase their own dreams, but they always come back. Because this is home, because I made sure they always knew they had a place to belong. I learned something through all of this, something I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, when he sat on the floor holding that iPad, his world crumbling around him. The worst thing that happened to me became the catalyst for the best version of myself. Betrayal does not define you. How you respond to it does. I could have become bitter, angry, resentful. I could have let Linda's abandonment poison my heart. But I chose differently. I chose to become better, not bitter. I chose to love harder, not build walls. My kids taught me that love is not about being perfect. It is about being present. It is about showing up on the hard days and the easy days. It is about sacrifice and consistency, and never ever giving up, even when you are so tired you can barely stand. Real love is not fireworks and passion and stolen moments in secret. Real love is braiding your daughter's hair, even though you are terrible at it. Real love is sitting through hours of soccer practice in the rain. Real love is choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. I do not hate Linda anymore. I do not wish her harm. In fact, in some strange way, I am grateful. Her leaving forced me to become the man I was meant to be. Her absence created space for me to build an unbreakable bond with my children. Her choice gave me the opportunity to show Dylan and Emma what unconditional love truly looks like. Last week, Emma told me she is engaged. Her fiancé is a good man, kind and hardworking, the type who reminds me of myself at that age. She asked me to walk her down the aisle, and I cried right there in front of her. Dylan is dating someone special too, a woman who makes him laugh and challenges him to be better. He told me last month that when he thinks about the kind of father he wants to be someday, he thinks of me. Those moments make everything worth it. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every time I put their needs before my own. I gave them everything I had, and they are giving it back to me now, in ways I never imagined. So here I am, 21 years later, sitting in the home I built for my kids, surrounded by photos of our life together. Dylan at his MIT graduation wearing his cap and gown with the biggest smile. Emma at her first court case, fierce and confident in her suit. Family vacations we scraped together money for. Birthday parties. Holidays. Ordinary moments that became extraordinary because we were together. Life did not turn out the way I planned. When I stood at that altar 26 years ago, promising to love Linda forever, I meant it. I envisioned growing old together, watching our grandchildren play in the backyard we would share. That future dissolved like smoke, leaving me to rebuild from ashes. But looking at where I am now, at the man I have become, and the children I raised, I would not change a thing. Sometimes the people who leave are making room for the blessings that are meant to stay. Sometimes the hardest moments lead to the greatest growth. Sometimes loss becomes gain in ways you could never predict. I lost a wife who did not truly love me, but I gained the chance to be the father my kids deserved. I gained strength, resilience, and a capacity for love I did not know I possessed, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. What would you have said if you were in my position after 21 years? Would you have forgiven or walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I would love to hear your perspective. If this story moved you or reminded you of your own journey, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that they can survive anything. And do not forget to subscribe for more stories about real life, real struggles, and real triumphs. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that no matter what life throws at you, you have the strength to rise above it. May you always find the courage to show up for the people who matter most. Take care of yourselves and each other.